morning, everyone, and welcome to Urban Update. I'm Byron Barnett. On the show today, having that very difficult conversation with those afflicted with Alzheimer's disease about their end-of-life care issues. We'll tell you about an organization that is dedicated to alleviating that burden. Also this morning, we'll introduce you to an 83-year-old breast cancer survivor, teacher, therapist, and author of a new book who believes the key to life is in the heart. More on that in a bit. But up first, Cuba, an island only 90 miles away from the U.S., but with a place in the 20th century history like no other. Last week reminded us about all of this when Fidel Castro, the communist revolutionary who played a prominent role in bringing the Cold War to the Western Hemisphere, died at the age of 90. His reign, often described as one of the longest-running dictatorships, lasted nearly half a century as he held power longer than any other living national leader except Queen Elizabeth II. He bedeviled 11 American presidents, and his antics pushed the world to the brink of nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Today, we are joined by three members of the Boston Cuban-American community who, like many in Miami, have openly expressed their feelings about the passing of Castro. Joining us this morning, we have Rosalin Acosta, born in Havana, who came over at the age of 4. And she has been in the banking industry in Boston for more than 30 years and has never gone back since leaving. Naheem Garcia arrived in the U.S. in 1968 with his family and has been an active educator and teacher, artist, featured in many local plays and films in Boston. Naheem has not been back to Cuba either. And also we have Alberto Vasallo III, publisher of El Mundo Boston, and a member of the Urban Update family right here. He's born in Boston, but whose father, Alberto Vasallo Jr., escaped from Castro's Cuba in 1964 and has never been back. Welcome to Urban Update. Thanks for coming in. This is really a panel that I'm really interested to hear from today, as many in the Boston community are. Before we begin, can we sort of just go around the table and get a sense of what you all felt, your emotions when you heard the news about the death of Fidel Castro? Rosalin, ladies first.
Well, thank you, Byron. My first emotion, first of all, was 3:30 in the morning when I saw it come through my CNN alert. And I frankly couldn't sleep after that. It was a real mix of emotion. It was almost a culmination of my entire life's emotions about this man that I've never met and this country that I came from. It's been a subject of conversation at every meal in my family as I was growing up. It's been a subject of conversation every family gathering. I grew up in Union City, New Jersey, which is a very, very Cuban-American, Cuban stronghold next to Miami. So this was a conversation 24/7 that we had. So very emotional for me to hear this.
Naheem, what about you?
I saw it on Facebook. I thought it was a joke. I said, get at it. He finally died. He's been dead. And a few things came to mind. One, what's going to happen to my Cuba? Two, Mima didn't live to see the day. And three, what's going to happen with the deal, the relationship between the United States and Cuba. I was very concerned about that. And then I got concerned about the people in Cuba and the community and what's going to start happening. Violence. And it reminded me when Castro took over. I thought about that. So I said, time's repeating itself. So, yeah, I'm very concerned. I mean, I was raised not to like or respect Castro because of my family's views of, we left. We left. We left Cuba and left a family. I left family in Cuba. I left a father in Cuba. I left, so it's, yeah. Stuff.
Okay, Alberto, and what about you, Alberto? Just your initial reaction.
Emotional. My first reaction was, again, 2 in the morning. I thought of my dad. I thought of your dad. I thought of all those dads who suffered because I wasn't born in Cuba like Naheem and Rosalin, but again, growing up in a Cuban household, you hear about it. Yeah. And, my first reaction on Facebook was, this is the day I've been waiting for my whole life, as long as I can remember. But then I didn't know how to react.
Right.
Because you don't want to be happy that a human being died. You don't want to. I don't want to tell my daughter that I'm happy that a human being died, but yet I couldn't help feel some joy at least, and maybe relief, and think of your dad, my uncle, my aunts. So yeah, it was definitely emotional.
Well, a book and an end to an era, apparently, obviously.
Yeah.
More so than as much as a human being. Rosalin, how do you describe to people who aren't that versed with the Cuban experience about your feelings toward Castro and why it's led to all these open celebrations that we've seen in the Cuban community here in America?
That's a great question, Byron. It's a complicated answer, and I always say that it's complicated when my friends always ask about Cuba, because there are so many different feelings about what's going on there. And what I can say is that Cuban Americans are very passionate people. We're very passionate about what happens to our Cuba, as Naheem put it. And so while Castro's passing is almost more of a symbolic gesture, one of the things that I've always had to work with is the fact that I am Cuban American, and I straddle both very strongly, and I feel just as strong as an American as I do as a Cuban. So I'm looking at every Cuba issue from two lenses, and I really do try to understand my American friends, how they feel about Cuba. But frankly, it's been a country that's been oppressed certainly all my life, and why my family left.
Now, Naheem, have you found it difficult to explain to other people, even Latinos, about, I guess, what Cubans have gone through?
Well, when somebody says, "Oh, I didn't realize there were black people in Cuba," and then I respond with, "Where do you think the term Afro-Cuban came from?" It bothers me, the fact that we have this world that believes that all Hispanics are close to Spaniard-looking, and that you wouldn't find somebody that looks like me being Cuban. I mean, I've auditioned for movies. Everybody is Hispanic, is American Hispanic, don't speak Spanish. And I'm sitting here saying I'm the most authentic thing on this line, but they would not pick me because of I look black. And so trying to explain that I'm Cuban, trying to explain what Cuba means, what Cuba has been for me and for many people, that we are the birth of so much. One of the richest countries in the world, yet people have been living like they're in the 30s for, I mean, I can't believe that people are so oppressed in a country that has so much. And it's hard to explain that to people, especially living here.
Now, Alberto, now you've never lived in communism. You were born right here in Beantown, but you've heard a lot from your father, obviously. How important, who escaped from Cuba, as you told us, how important has it been for you to, I guess, explain the Cuban experience living here in the United States?
Well, it's been almost the defining kind of part of me, like Rosalin and Naheem, we can't get away from it. And, it was funny because I was thinking of that and going through high school, explaining to all these kids what Cuba was. And I remember some of the high school kids will watch it maybe now will remember. When I was in high school, I'd always say there are two things that I can't wait for. One, the day the Red Sox win their first World Series, right? And two, I would always say the day Castro dies. So in 2004, I hadn't seen some of my high school friends. I get texts saying 1 down, 1 to go. So about 4 in the morning on
All down.
I had high school kids, 2 down, you're good, you're 2 down. So even my high school friends and grammar school friends remember. So it's been a life journey. I'm American, but obviously Cuba is, I feel like you guys.
Everything.
Yeah.
Rosalin, Cuba. Let's talk about Cuba a little bit some more here. It's a diverse country, and you three are very good examples right here. I guess, how do you describe its people when you talk to Americans?
Oh, man.
Three different opinions.
Well, yes. I mean, first of all, extraordinarily diverse. I mean, we have origins from Africa. We have origins from Europe. We have origins from China. We have origins from the Jewish community.
Yes.
So we are very diverse as a population. And what makes us all congeal and come together is the food and the music. I think those are the two things that
and
really.
That we're Cuban.
And that we're Cuban, and that is such a strong bond, and I think Naheem and Alberto can confess that no matter if you just walk into a stranger in the middle of the street or at a restaurant or another state or another country, and they say they're Cuban, it's an immediate bond. You hug.
Yeah.
You hug because there's nothing like that bond.
And it's a number few, right?
Yes.
Now, Naheem, you've been away from Cuba, obviously, for so long, since 1968. You're a Bostonian now. I guess, how much of Cuba still lives in you, though?
A whole lot. Every last itch. I mean, I've been told, you're not really Cuban. You've been here since you were 1, or you've been here since you were little. But I think I'm as much or more because I've held on to it by myself, in my heart, in my soul. One thing about Cubans that I've always known, all Cubans, no matter what walk of life, we're very prideful, especially to say that we're Cuban. Yo soy cubano. And you say that with a sense of richness and joy. So yeah, I could say I'm 100% and more.
Alberto, talk to me about some misconceptions people might have about Castro and his legacy.
Yeah, you're watching a lot of the stuff with the world leaders, and I know some of them have to be kind of, there's a protocol, but what irks me is that sometimes it gets forgotten, the oppression, the violence, the hurt that he's caused. So, you know, you hear all this stuff, free education and healthcare and all that, but, you know, and those who champion it just seem to always forget the other part. And that bothers me a lot. It bothers me that they say, Black Cubans love Castro. You despise him just as much as I do.
I mean, he didn't like us. He was very mean to a lot of Cubans, just, you know, as Black Cubans, and a lot of them were in prison for their views and just for their being. It seems to happen all over the world. And to find out in a country like, I remember being in Miami, speaking to somebody in Spanish, and they weren't hearing me. They were looking at me, trying to speak English and couldn't. And this man's been here 50 years, and I had to like snap my finger and says, I'm Cuban, I'm speaking to you in Spanish. Oh, you know, so and again, the pride behind loving Castro and the people that stayed behind. My family, I was told that there were many people in my family that were angry that we were leaving. And how dare we leave Castro and abandon him?
Gusano.
He was terrible. I mean, I've heard terrible stories of things that he's done, taking people blindfolded to the dunes of Cuba and leaving them there to die. I mean, what is that? Yeah.
Well, wrap things up here. Rosalin and Naheem, now, why haven't you been back to Cuba? And with the death of Fidel, what do you think? Plans to go, you think?
Yeah, for me, I think what's held me back after many, many invitations to go down from different nonprofits group really is respect, I think, for my father. Both my parents are alive. They're 87. And it would be hurtful for him if I went back because of the conditions that he left. They fled. They were political asylum here. So it would be difficult for him to see me go. I would love to go. Nothing like completing that circle for me to go back to my birthplace. And I will be back. I just don't know when.
Naheem?
I was always told that since I was young when I left Cuba that I could never go back. Tú no puedes regresar a Cuba, they would say. You can't go back. Because I found out, I don't know if I get in trouble for saying this, but my mother was forced to sign a document that I was to return at the age of 18. And she did it just to get out of Cuba, knowing that she would never return me. I want to go back, and I hope that one day I can go back. And I'm actually working on trying to figure that out.
And finally, Alberto, I guess, what about you? Any plans to go for the first time?
If my father goes, and that's a big hurdle. He's not sure if he wants to go, just like your dad. But if he goes, I'll go. If you go, you know, I'll go. If you go, I'll go. But
He was not here, so I got no choice
I know.
but to go here. My grandmother passed.
That, you know, I've known you for many years, and I know that I guess your father's experience is buried very deep in you. That has stayed with you your entire life.
yeah, we all get emotional. I know. I saw your eyes water. I saw yours. Now it's my turn. But
Your father escaped from. He didn't just leave Cuba; he escaped.
Right.
Escaped. So, well, I think we're just going to have to leave it right there. On that note, we could go on and on.
Thank you.
You know, thank you all so much for coming in and opening your hearts and sharing your emotions and feelings about this milestone in world history, really. Naheem Garcia, Rosalin Acosta, and of course, the one and only Alberto Vasallo. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, when we come back, having that very difficult conversation with those afflicted with Alzheimer's disease about their end-of-life care issues. The details coming up right here on Urban Update.